Hey everyone, tuning into today's video. I'm going to do something a bit different with today's video. I'm going to look at ENSO and what the implications of ENSO could be for the summer, because as we know, we've had the El Nino event that's been dominating the global weather circulation since last summer. It's gradually been building up in pace. It's now easing off, and what we've got to do is start thinking about what comes after El Nino, and that will really be for the summer and then on into the autumn and the winter of 2016-2017. Now, I don't want to think about the winter for this update, so we're just going to look at the summer really, and what the implications could be of what is coming after this El Nino, because I think we're probably going to go into a cold event, a La Nina, after this El Nino. So we'll have a look and see what the implications of that could be. Never any guarantees with long range forecasting, of course, but we'll have a look at what the implications of that could be for the summer. So before I get on with that, just to say about the ads, there's links to articles on all of the pages at Gazovitz. Have a browse through the widgets and click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. Thanks very much for doing that. There's also video ads on most of the pages. They open up content. When you watch them, they'll close back up again, and it is helping to pay for our website. So just going to start off by looking at El Nino. Of course, this was the situation in December when we did the last ENSO update, and of course at that point we have this very strong and mature El Nino event going on across the equatorial part of the Pacific. This huge massive red is the signature, the warm signature of El Nino. That El Nino event has started to weaken now, so this is the very latest from NOAA in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies across the globe. And you can see that through the ENSO region, the red colours are quite clearly starting to back off, and it also becomes centrally base, but you can see that quite clearly there has been a weakening of this El Nino event taking place over the last month. So going back to December, that situation in December, going back to now, is particularly evident towards the Peruvian side of the equatorial Pacific. But I think all regions of the ENSO regions, all ENSO regions, have cooled a little bit over the past month. And you would expect that because El Nino peaks around Christmas. That's what it's called, El Nino, little boy, Christ child. It has that connection. So it always peaks around November, December, and then starts to back off as we go through into the end of the Northern Hemisphere winter and on into the spring. Now, once this weakens away to neutral, that'll probably happen during the spring, we have to think what is coming after the El Nino event. What often happens is that you get a La Nina, you get a cold event. So this is what La Nina looks like. This is from the 21st of January 2008, and you see it's a complete opposite. There's a huge massive blue, a huge massive cold water has now come through the equatorial part of the Pacific. So this is a classic signature for a cold La Nina event, and very often after an El Nino you do swing the other way and you go into a cold event. Not always, right? It's not always guaranteed, but after El Nino you get La Nina. Sometimes, and quite rare, but sometimes you don't actually go to La Nina, you just drop down into sort of weak El Nino neutral type conditions into the summer. So we can't guarantee we're going to get a cold event, and what we need to do is see what the models are showing. So we're going to start off with CFSV2, and that is showing a big drop in temperature taking place through this year. So this graph is the CFSV2 forecast for the 3.4 Nino region. And remember, 3.4, of course, is the central part of the equatorial Pacific just here. So what we see from the CFSV2 is that there's a definite decline now from where we are. This is where we are right now. You see it's downhill all the way, really. The dates are on the bottom, so by the time you get through to July, we've dropped down into that sort of territory. Now, this is taking us down into neutral. It isn't yet definitively going for La Nina. It's not definitively going into a cold event. What the CFSV2 wants to do is, you can see it from this black dash line, is to go down into ENSO-neutral and then to stay there. But you see there is a big scatter in terms of the members of the CFS V2 ensemble. So some members of the ensemble definitely do go down into La Nina territory, which is just here. Other members actually keep us in sort of weak El Nino type condition into the summer. But I think the overall trend there is definitely down, and I would suspect as we get further on into the year, we'll see this becoming more pronounced, this drop, and it will probably be predicted that we go into La Nina sometime through the summer. We'll keep an eye on it. The UK Met Office, model is going for a cold event as well. So these are this is the sea surface temperature forecast anomaly chart for February to April, first of all, so the coming tri-monthly period. Again, there's the signature of El Nino with those red colours there through the equatorial part of the Pacific. If we go on though and have a look at the 4 to 6 month period, which takes us for the tri-monthly period April to July, we see by then definite signs of cooling taking place through the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean. Green, little splotch of green beginning to appear there through the early part of the summer. That's going down into negative territory in terms of those sea surface temperature anomaly. So again, the UK Met Office model is seeing a collapse of El Nino to neutral, possibly going towards La Nina by the summer. What about Jamstec IOD? That shows us again, tri-monthly period, March to May. That shows us with weakening El Nino condition through the equatorial part of the Pacific Ocean, but the signature is still there. Let's have a look and see what it shows by the time you get through to the autumn. September to November looks like this, and a very dramatic switch around has taken place. That is the signature of La Nina. So it is Jamstec IOD is taking us from a warm event through the first part of the year into a cold event, La Nina, into the second part of the year. And that's quite a strong La Nina as well, going down below 1 Celsius, below average in terms of the anomaly. And the CAN6 model as well is showing this. So this is the sea surface temperature anomaly forecast for February. Again, there's a signature of El Nino still going on into February with those red colours. If we go forward, so let's go forward to September and see what CAN6 is showing. There we go. It shows us with quite a big La Nina, quite a big cold event taking place by the time we get through to the end of the summer. So we've got pretty good evidence here that we are beginning to shift through the course of the spring into neutral condition. By the summer we get through to La Nina beginning to develop, and that strengthens then through into the end of the year. La Nina is the same idea as El Nino, so it begins through the spring and the summer, it strengthens through the autumn, reaches its peak around Christmas, and then eases off into the early part of the next year. El Nino does that, and so does La Nina. So what we're going to think about is what happens during years when we're transitioning from El Nino to La Nina, and that transition is typically taking place through the summer. So we're going to look at the summers essentially that are going from El Nino to La Nina. So let's just have a look at this chart, which is the cold and warm episodes by season chart from NOAA, from the Climate Prediction Center in the United States. So we can start in 1950 with this, and we can go all the way down to the present scenario, and this is the present scenario. It's still showing 2015, and we're up to the tri-monthly period. What are we up to with it's the tri-monthly period of October, November, December. That's how far we've got up to so far with this of 2015. It's that box just there. And that comes out at 2.3, which interestingly is equal to 1997, the tri-monthly period of October to December in 1997. So that's quite interesting actually, that we've equaled 1997 now. Of course, 97-98 was the all-time warmest El Nino event on record. Anyway, I'm digressing with that. Let's have a look at the years that have El Nino transitioning into La Nina. So we're going from red numbers to blue numbers. So, for example, the first year that's doing this is 1954. So there's an El Nino event, you'll see this, there's an El Nino event in 1953, 1954, indicated by all of these red numbers here for 1953, just starting into going into the start of 1954. Then it goes to neutral, look at that, through the early part of 1954. And then the blue numbers begin to appear through the second half of 1954. So the first year that transitions from El Nino to La Nina over the summer is the summer of 1954. That was a pretty grim summer. It was a very unsettled summer. It's quite cold. So we'll have a look at the CET and some charts in a moment for some of these summers. But 1954 was a very poor one. The next year that transitions from El Nino to La Nina, the next year that does that is 1964. So again, I've got these red numbers in the boxes there through 1963 inside 1964. Then the blue numbers begin to appear. That's just a week El Nino and a week La Nina though. So I think we can more or less discount that because we know we've got a very strong El Nino going on at the moment. So that's just sort of a borderline type scenario. Nevertheless, the summer of 1964 wasn't much to write home about. The next year that does that with conviction anyway is the year of 1973. So we've got the El Nino of 1972, 1973 going on just there. And then through the course of the summer of 1973, we go into La Nina, quite a strong La Nina through that summer. That wasn't too bad actually. It's a fairly mixed summer, but compared to some of these summers that are transitioning from El Nino to La Nina, that one wasn't too bad. The next year, excuse me, that does the El Nino to La Nina scenario is 1988. That's a very grim summer. So we've got the El Nino event of 87 going on there inside of 88. Then we go neutral for a couple of tri-month periods, and then we go into the La Nina of 1988 through the course of summer. That was a very poor summer in 1998, one of the worst summers of the 1980s. There was a lot of them in the 1980s. The next year is 97-98, so there's the record-breaking El Nino event of 1997 into the start of 1998, and then there's the La Nina appearing in the second half of 1998, starting in the summer. The summer of 1998 was a pretty poor summer as well, so there is a trend here, there is a pattern emerging with these years that are transitioning from El Nino to La Nina. They tend to be poor summers. 1998 was another one of those. We go down to the next year that does the El Nino to La Nina scenario, and again that is 2007, 2008. So there's the that's 2006, I should say, 2007. So here is the El Nino of the end of 2006, just into the start of 2007. Then we go neutral. There's the La Nina coming along in the second half of 2007. It happens over summer. The transition happens over summer of 2007. I don't need to tell you what happened in 2007. It was an absolutely abysmal summer with tremendous amount of flooding and pretty cold temperatures as well. Hopefully we won't get anything as bad this time, but that was a very, very poor summer in 2007. And then the last time we did the El Nino to La Nina switch is through 2010. So there's the El Nino of 2009 into 2010. There's the neutral period, just for a couple of tri-monthly periods, and then we go into La Nina in the second half of 2010. Again, that was a pretty poor summer, although it did have a decent start. So have a look at some of the charts that go with these summers. This, for example, is the 2nd of July 1988. It's very indicative of the summer of 1988 with this deep trough of low pressure over top of the country. We have a look at 1998. Again, this is July 1998. Very unsettled summer. Again, this is quite indicative of July 1998, which was cool and unsettled. It wasn't desperately raining in the south, but it was a very unsettled summer up in the northern. Temperatures were really very modest indeed. This is 2007, and well, I don't want to dwell too much on 2007 because hopefully we won't get a repeat of anything as bad as 2007, but just a quick reminder of what an appalling summer it was this 2nd of July 07 with that deep trough over top of the country. And then we go through to 2010, which was the last time we transitioned from an El Nino through to La Nina during the summer of 2010. Had a fairly decent start to that summer, actually, quite a bit of high pressure. By the time we got through to the end of the summer, we had a very poor August. Now, we do have to factor in one issue, which is that not every single El Nino goes to La Nina. Whilst the models are fairly, for this stage, anyway, it's a long time away, whilst the models are fairly strongly forecasting a switch from El Nino to La Nina, we can't guarantee it. So sometimes, just sometimes, what will happen is that after El Nino will just drop towards neutral, and you get a very different you can get a very different summer in those years that just dropped to neutral. So let's have a look at the ENSO, at the cold and warm ENSO episodes by season chart again. There aren't that many summers that don't go from El Nino to La Nina. There aren't many years, but there are a couple, and they're quite interesting. One of the years is 1982, 1983. So this is the El Nino event starting in 1982 and going into 1983. And you notice what happens in 1983 is that we don't get any blue numbers appearing. We just go from the El Nino event in the first part of 1983 into, well, just borderline neutral to weak La Nina type territory, really, in the second half. It basically goes from El Nino down to ENSO neutral. Now, 1983 was a very hot summer, so we go out of that El Nino, and we get a very hot summer in 1983, and we did it again in 2002, 2003. This is quite a weak El Nino, starting in the second half of 2002, going into the start of 2003. But again, you notice as we go through 2003, and this is the rest of the period just here, you notice no blue colours are appearing. So what's happening again is that through 0203, we're going from an El Nino event just back to neutral. We're not swinging from a warm event to a cold event, and this is another hot summer. Now, that's only two, there aren't that many years to go at, but it does suggest that the years that transition from El Nino to La Nina tend to be unsettled with the summers. The years that just go from El Nino to ENSO neutral tend, perhaps, and there's only two of them to go at 83 and 03, but they tend to be much hotter summer. So it really could be a very, very crucial and critical issue what's happening after this El Nino. My suspicion is that we're going to go into La Nina, and I think that's going to happen because it has such a prolonged warm period really through the ENSO regions. I assume there's going to be a lot of cold water at depth waiting to come up. So I would think, my guess is that we'll go into La Nina and have a fairly poor summer. But we can't discount the possibility that we won't go to La Nina, that will just slide to neutral. If that happens, the summer could be a lot hotter. So it really will be one to keep an eye on. We just have a look at the centering temperatures for some of these summers. So starting with the summers where we're transitioning from El Nino to La Nina. So as we know, the first one is 1954. That was a dreadful summer, indicated just here. Actually, let's wait and see. Where are we? So we've got January, February, March, April, May. So June starts just here at 30 13.4, and then July 1954 is 40.2, August is 14.6, a terrible summer that was, a really, really dreadful summer, September cold as well at 12.7, so that's our first one back to 1950, where we're transitioning from El Nino to La Nina. Very poor summer. We have a look at 1973, which is another summer, as we saw, that does the transition from El Nino to La Nina. That wasn't quite as bad, actually, for an El Nino to La Nina summer. Actually, the temperatures with that one weren't too bad. We have a look at 1988. That was a very poor one, where we're transitioning from El Nino to La Nina. That's these three numbers just here. So 14.4 for June, about average. 40.7 for July, very poor. 15.2 for August, also very poor. The next year is 1998, the summer of 1998. Again, that's a poor one. 14.2 for June, 15.5 for July, 15.9 for August. Did have a warmer September. The next year is 2007. Less said about that, the better. All three summer months come out in the 15s. So not as exceptionally cold summer, but it's really the flooding rains that were the main talking point about that one. And let's just hope we don't get a repeat of 2007. We can't be doing with that. And then the last year that did the El Nino to La Nina transition is 2010. This one just here. That has a June temperature quite warm of 15.2. July 17.1. That's okay. August went cold and really quite wet. For an El Nino to La Nina summer, 2010 wasn't too bad actually. It's a pretty good summer really, because these summers that transition from El Nino to La Nina are very dubious, so that one wasn't too bad. And just finally, the years that don't go to La Nina, there's only two of them. We've got 1983, of course we know that was a very hot summer, particularly in July, which comes out with central temperature of 19.5. Very, very hot July indeed. And then we did it again in 2003. The summer of 2003 went from El Nino at the start of the year just to neutral. And again, that was another hot summer, very hot June, hot July, and a really hot August as well. Culminating, of course, in that extraordinary heat wave at the start of August 03. So what we've got to take from this is that what happens after El Nino is going to be very important potentially for our summer prospects. If we go from El Nino to La Nina, chances are we're going to have a pretty poor summer, to say the least. 2010 is about the best of them, back to 1950, but did the transition, and that started off pretty decent really, and then went very poor in August. Otherwise, generally, they're pretty grim bunch of summers, I have to say, that do the transition from El Nino to La Nina. However, we can't totally rule out the prospect that we won't get a La Nina. If we don't get a La Nina, then we may have to start thinking a bit more about a hot summer, because these years that just go from El Nino back to neutral don't go to a cold event. There's only two of them, but both of them, 83 and 03, both of them were hot summers. So let's wait and see where things go. My guess is that we'll go to La Nina, and I think, as I say, we'll do it because it's been generally quite warm through the ENSO regions over the past couple of years. I think there'll be quite a lot of water, quite a lot of cold water waiting to come up and displace all of this warm water. So I think we'll go to La Nina, and that's where the models are trending at the moment as well. But we won't know whether that is actually going to happen until we get to around April and May, and then the models really will firm up, and it will start to see evidence of cold water appearing through the ENSO regions as well. So we'll know by the time we get through to the spring and the early summer. It's going to be fascinating to keep an eye on it, but my prediction is that we will go to La Nina and probably have a fairly grim summer for 2016. So we'll wait and see how things pan out. I hope you found the video interesting. I've waffled on for a very long time. I find all of this fascinating. I hope you enjoyed the video. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching.